let's jump in with probably the more interesting topic this week. Uncharted creative director Amy Hennig is making a Marvel game. This comes from Jay Peters at The Verge. He writes, Amy Hennig, a former creative director at Naughty Dog, who currently leads Skydance New Media, will be working on a new Marvel video game. Skydance describes the game, which is its first as a narrative-driven blockbuster action-adventure game featuring a completely original story and take on the Marvel universe, but hasn't said which superheroes will be featured in the game. The studio hasn't shared a release date or even a release timeframe, and hasn't said which platforms the game will be available on. Despite how little we actually know about the game, Hennig's involvement in a story-driven Marvel project is an intriguing one. Hennig served as a writer and creative director for the first 3 Uncharted games, so hopefully this new Marvel game will similarly blend action and heart to make for a compelling experience. The combination worked well in the new Guardians of the Galaxy release this week, after all. They finish off saying Skydance's new game also joins an impressive lineup of Marvel games on the horizon, which includes tactical RPG Marvel's Midnight Suns, from XCOM developers Firaxis, and Insomniac Spider-Man 2, and a Wolverine game. Adam, first off, what's your excitement level for this game? What do you kind of hope from it? What do you think X-Men is, or sorry, not X-Men, which Marvel characters do you think is it going to be involving?
Well, for starters, like I've made no bones about it. Apart from Uncharted 4, most of the Uncharted games have kind of fallen under my radar.
Mm-hmm.
So Amy Hennig isn't a name that immediately makes me go, "Oh my god, that's amazing." It's more just like, I know who that is. I know that's quality, but for me, it's not necessarily like oh, holy crap, this could be amazing. More, I'm just like, well, they at least got somebody pretty decent behind it, according to the industry, so that's a good start. I'm not like super psyched, but I mean, right now we're in an age that Marvel games seem to be finally getting a pattern of being good, because all accounts say that Guardians of the Galaxy is really good, which I'm very excited about. Mm-hmm. And obviously Spider-Man's doing what it's doing, and obviously we'll have Midnight Suns, and obviously 2 Insomnia games coming soon as well. So there's a lot of promise coming when it comes to the Marvel license after Avengers really made us remember, oh yeah, these can be bad too. We remember the old days of the movie tie-in games that were just always 4 out of 10s at best.
Excuse me. Spider-Man, that was an amazing tie-in movie game. That was amazing. Do not crap on that one.
Well, no, we're talking like 360 era, so we're talking like the Iron Man and Hulk games and stuff like that, where they were just always just like Batman Arkham Asylum wannabe garbage. They weren't great.
No, they weren't. So, if you were to guess what superhero, well, first of all, I'm going to take a completely different edge, but let's kind of find before I go into the negative side, what superhero do you think, or what IP do you think they will tackle or should tackle, given what you know of Amy Hennig and the kind of games that she makes?
Well, I think if you were to assume that it was going to be somewhat in the vein of what she is used to writing for, I don't think you go crazy and go into like the, really spectral and like crazy magical universes. I don't think you're going to get that level, but you would have things that work really well, like Black Widow, Captain America. Like you could do a really good game that's like a big shield game, like dealing with Nick Fury and all them. You could do a really cool like action, like early days of like the Avenger Initiative kind of stuff, where it's not like over the top fighting massive, galactic threats. You could have like the early days of just your basic supervillains, kind of like what Spider-Man generally seems to show off. I think that could work really well. And then when it comes to the adventure stuff, if you're talking the environments, like that's also a really good idea for a Black Panther game too. So there's a couple different ways you can go about it. But they could do whatever they really want. I'd be like, all right, I'll see where that goes. But I mean, I prefer something, at least with the Uncharted in name in my head, I want something that I know could be at least a little more rooted in Earth, not, super over the top, like mega superpower, magic, crazy stuff that's going to be a little bit more harder to contain.
Mm-hmm. I feel like for me, if I think of Amy Hennig, I think of her doing, stories that are character driven. And so you need a character who has that sort of like, I think you're going to kind of move away from doing like a large sort of shield style game. I think you're right. I think it is going to be like a one sort of solo character. And my go-to would have been like her doing a Wolverine style game or something like that. I don't see her doing an X-Men or like a Shield, like something group based. I think it's gonna be single player, like single focused. And so you need someone who has like a compelling story or kind of experience. And like, I don't know. I think like Iron Man might be one. I think Black Panther is another good option. But yeah, it has to be somewhat grand. You don't need you don't want something with like over the top kind of superpowers, or even like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what an Uncharted game looks like with that. And like, unless you're doing an open world game, doing like an Iron Man-esque style game doesn't work, nor does Thor, because you don't want someone who can like fly around and do that, because that kind of changes the whole game there.
Well, it's not to say that she could, like, she's really just writing. It's not like she's making the entirety of the game. It's just, it's what we're used to, right? So that's kind of why we're leaning in that direction. I mean, quite frankly, she could do anything. Like, they can make a Captain Marvel game and I'll see her name behind it and be like, I'm sure they'll figure something out for a good story. But
you see, for me, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of my excitement. Like, I was kind of disappointed in this route. I think I've talked about this on the show, or at least I've talked to you about it. And I think a lot of people are starting to feel the Marvel burnout. And I think that's starting to show as well in the movies. Like, you look at some stuff like The Immortals didn't do super well. Sorry?
Eternals.
What did I say?
Immortals.
Whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, I know. Immortals, Eternals, children, grandchildren. It's all relative.
I'm having that sugar crash right now, buddy. Get off my back. But I mean, like I'm not hearing anything but that. Black Widow kind of came and went, and like even like Shang-Chi like didn't do, like, it was great. People liked it, but it like did fall into the traps. Like, I feel like the Marvel ship has kind of sailed. And it's still gonna, like, I'm not saying that it's gonna bomb or whatever. Like, there's still millions of dollars to be made with Marvel, but it's just, I feel like that excitement is starting to wane. And I feel like that burnout's happening, and I worry that we're gonna get to that point as well in the video game world. Like even this article was saying, like, we have Midnight Suns coming out, Spider-Man 2 coming, Wolverine game coming. We just had Guardians of the Galaxy, we had Avengers, and we had Miles Morales in the span of like less than 4 years. Even if you go 4 years, I think that even includes Marvel Spider-Man. Like, it's a lot. And I kind of wonder if, like, unless it's doing something incredibly different or unique, like, I just think another superhero story is not really what we like. I just don't know. I wonder if it's going to be like burnt, like overdone by the time it gets there.
I mean, I'll make two arguments, right? Like, it's really easy to get burned out when stuff is bad. I think that's why people are not really caring about what DC's putting out. I know most of my friends have watched the Batman trailer and went, okay, it looks like Batman. I mean, what else do you want? We're normally like, when Dark Knight Returns first had its trailer, everybody flipped because all they remember is the good, right? I know a lot of people that are really excited going into Eternals. I'm going to be watching it Friday in theaters. I'm going in expecting I'm not going to care much for it just because I don't know any of the source material. And it has the feeling of a movie specifically where it's overpowered gods. How do you make that all that interesting? It was a similar case with Captain Marvel, where I said, Captain Marvel can literally like win any battle with her powers. So like, it's really hard to make a good story. It's why I'm not a big Superman guy either, because when you're capable of basically winning any fight you get into, it's kind of hard to get behind a person because there's not much of a clawing your way up story.
Yeah. Like, I feel like when you have those kind of movies, and now we're getting into like the movies on Superman, and I feel like with like, if you're going to do something like Superman, if you're going to do something like Captain Marvel, I think you kind of go more into the realm of, having all this power, but you like, should you use it, sort of thing. So like, I think if you're ever going to do like a compelling like Superman story, you kind of do an idea like, sure, Superman could, stop this or whatever, but like, should he? Like, I don't know. Like, I kind of think like if you put it where he has to decide between his own interests and the interests of like people or something like that. And so sure, he could get what he wants. He could stop the villain and save the day or whatever. Or, does he have to kind of make those personal choices of just because he can, he doesn't mean he should, kind of thing. And I'm not saying like let Lex Luthor win, but if you make that kind of interesting character story, like that's something different.
Yeah.
I feel like especially the Marvel stories are getting very formulaic, and I just hope that the game moves away from that.
Well, I mean, like from my personal experience, right? Like most of the stuff that I've watched from Marvel, like, and I'm counting like movies and TV shows, They're mostly relatively positive. And I think that's why the burnout isn't happening as easy for me, because I'm not like hating most of the stuff that comes out. And the same is going for the games, like, right? And also, I do think it's a little bit early to say there's a burnout on the game version, because I think the games and the movies are two completely different experiences. So I think, I don't know if everybody can do this, but I can separate the two. I'm not really concerned about the movies and the games intertwining, because I know they don't. The games are their own things. They're their own solo experiences. So I can go into a Spider-Man game and not have to worry about, it having anything to do with all the movies that Tom Holland's been in or any of the Tobey Maguire stuff now. And now I just know this is its own thing. I can turn my brain off about all the other shit, remember all the backstory that I know from as a kid from when I've been starting to watch Spider-Man, and just go. And the same goes when I go into Guardians of the Galaxy. I have even less knowledge, but I know don't have to think about Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, even though I'm going to miss Dave Bautista as Drax. But I can go in and play that game and be like, I'm going in knowing absolutely nothing about what's going to happen here, and I'll enjoy it. Same's going to go for Wolverine, but I think enough time has passed from Logan that I think it'll be fine. And then the XCOM, Midnight Suns thing is just a completely new experience, so it's different. And that's where I bring in my second argument, which is, if we're talking about games, if there's going to be any sort of a burnout, well, if that was the case, then people would have been burnt out of Call of Duty and first-person shooters a long time ago. I'll make the argument with the Marvel games is that we're not getting the same kind of Marvel game every single time. We're getting different genres, albeit most of them are in the action-adventure lens, but they're all different versions of that. And then obviously you have something like Midnight Sun. So there is a bit of variation. I think it'd be really nice if we see even more variation, and I hope that happens sooner than later, because I don't want it to just be adventure epic. As much as Spider-Man has been amazing, I don't want every Marvel game under the sun to be basically a Spider-Man clone, just being open world action adventure, because eventually that does run dry. That's why some games to me, like maybe Ghost of Tsushima, didn't go very well with me, because that style has kind of worn out. So there's an argument to be made, but if we're talking a few games that are kind of under the same lens, but then there's a few variations, especially bringing in stories. If suddenly somebody came back with a Fantastic Four game, you bet your ass I'm curious on what's going on there, because it hasn't had a good stretch of anything recently. Same with X-Men. The last X-Men game I remember liking so much was Legends on the Xbox 360, that Marvel Ultimate Alliance spin-off. So it's been a while. And I think the opportunity, and I know there was a rumor about it a while ago, but to get a Marvel fighting game, kind of like what Injustice does, there's another option to get something really going with the Marvel license too. So there's still plenty of open room for, I think, the Marvel brand to expand into games. And as long as they're chugging out high quality stuff, as long as we're not getting, Green Lantern video game quality stuff, or I guess if we're talking Marvel, Avengers, we're probably fine. I think most people will be okay with it. It just might be some people that are really burnt out overall from the movies may just not be interested. But I think, I'd say the average person still is look, if this thing's a 9 out of 10, I'm curious, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying I'm not excited by this. Do I hope the game's great? Absolutely. I've always been an advocate that I want more good games, but I'm not. I've seen some people who are flipping out, being hell yeah, I'm making Marvel. And I'm I kind of want something original. I'd like to see what, Amy Hennig could do if she's just can do her own.
Then do my idea. Sorry, do a shield, do a shield agent. Not the whole thing. Do an agent. Do a Nick Fury game. Something that's never been really put a light on.
Just play as Agent Carter. Cool.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
That's honestly a Nick Fury, Black Widow, or Maria something. Maria Hill, I think, is the one that Kobe Smulders plays. Yeah. So you could do something like that and just have fun with it. There's so many Marvel heroes that we don't know about that aren't crazy superpower ridden either. So there are ways to do it. I mean, even Daredevil's kind of in that vein too, where it's not over the top, right? Daredevil
actually might be a good one. It's not oversaturated.
It also would be nice to see another brawler, kind of what Avengers was supposed to be, but person, one player. Because that's what people wanted Avengers to be, and Lord knows they probably could have made a good game with that, but nope, we had to go the live service route.
Yeah.
I think what Amy Hennig being involved offers is that it offers us maybe to have a much different way of storytelling with these games, because we're used to it basically being a Marvel movie in a video game, right? I think with Amy
Yeah.
Hennig, there's a chance that it could be something that takes a little more of a realistic approach, and I think that's interesting too.
I'd like to see sort of like a character-driven. I don't know. Like, I'd like to see a character-driven one, and like the Daredevil kind of appeals to me. But I don't know. Amy Hennig, like I think about it, like she's amazing. I love Amy Hennig, but when you think of like the Uncharted games, like they're not. Those actually do feel like popcorn flicks, and I wonder how different that'll be. I don't know. I just wish she made 1313.
I'd really have to go through like a list of, like Marvel heroes and try to like really dig into stuff that, could really like people would actually like really dig into and think like I could really make a story with this, but they're not like superpower ridden over the top characters that we're used to.
Dude, you sold me on Daredevil, like, and the artistic direction that game would take would be awesome.
Because, I mean, there's so many different ways you can do it, too. Like, again, like, Punisher is also an option as well. Like, I'm just trying to think in the back of my mind, like, how many characters could fall into that without being, like, over-the-top characters. I mean, you could do, like, a Hawkeye thing. Because that'd be a good, like, third-person, like, Tomb Raider-ish kind of game. If
you want to do a dark game, like, if you want to do, like a more mature character, do one as, like, Magneto or something like that.
Like, I'm even scrolling right now, and I'm seeing like, other ones. Like, Blade could be an interesting game. Like there are definitely options, and you could dig way more to really go deep into it. But like, I think when everybody thinks Marvel, they just immediately jump to Avenger heroes, and it's like that's why I've really liked some of the, especially before, but the new wave of shows is starting to do the same too. But like watching shows like Luke Cage, and where you're not getting, space alien massive threats of planet destruction. Like it's just this dude's just chill, like going up against a crime syndicate. It's not anything crazy, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a real opportunity, assuming that that's the direction they take, that they take a much more like down to actual literal Earth approach instead of it being what we always expect Marvel to be when we just think, Thanos and fighting like massive space aliens,
Yeah, I think a grounded approach might be the way to go.
And I think that's what would separate it too.
Yeah, you're selling me on Daredevil. I kind of want a Daredevil game now. Ooh, they could do Ant-Man. Ant-Man would be kind of cool too.
Yeah, that's also an option.
So,
and I mean, cool. Like, there's so many off things you could do. So many off things.
Yeah.
Actually, come to think of it, because I'm just thinking of like all the characters I've seen in the movies over time. Like Hawkeye becomes Ronin at one point. That's also a pretty interesting, like, darker story that you can go into as well. Like, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a comic book nerd, in the sense that I know like all the comic book stories and stuff. So, I mean, I'd be curious to see someone who is to kind of like point to some comic book stories that are like, hey, this would be awesome to be seen into a video game.
Give me Phil Coulson, the video game. Done. Let's go.
There you go. That's who I was thinking of, Phil Coulson. Just having him there and like one level is just doing administrative work and. You
know what I really want? I want a game where I'm playing J. Jonah Jameson and I just have a "He's a menace" button.
Yeah, it's basically you're just running a newspaper.
It's literally just a first-person like VR game where you're just sitting there, and every time Parker comes in the room, you can just yell at him and throw shit at him. There's your VR experience.
I want pictures of Spider-Man.
And then finally, the game ends when Spider-Man hops into the room and just like webs you in the face, and you're like, "Menace!"
J. Jonah Jameson is like an underrated character in the Marvel universe.
I mean, I suppose, but everybody flipped their lid when they saw, what's his name? What's the guy that's going to be playing him, that played him in the original movies and is going to be doing it again now? Why am I forgetting his name?
Oh my God.
Is it J.K. Simmons, I think?
J.K. Simmons, that's who it is, yes.
Because I kept going J.K. I'm like, no, that's Harry Potter. I'm like, no, wait, it is J.K.
Yeah. Yeah, no, honestly, he stole it. Like, that is now what you...
And also, he's great in the video games because he's basically Alex Jones, he's Alex Jones Jameson, like basically.
With the podcast?
Yeah, it's so good.
He really is. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to give it time and see, but, like, I don't know. The idea of another Marvel story doesn't...
If it ends up being a Thor game, then I'm going to be like, it might still be good, but man, you could have done something real cool.